Yeah, that was a fun Sunday, and it is Sunday night, and we are chatting about it here on Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. People tell me to get the show on the road. Come on, we just got off the air. We were doing a little FFT Express. It was like a rehearsal for the big show. And anyway, Adam, Dave, and Heath here. Jamey is on his way. He leaves the office Sunday night and goes back home and then records, so that's why he runs a little bit late. But yeah, we're waiting for him. Anyway, we're not waiting for him. Let's get right into it. Dave Richard, who's our biggest winner? Biggest winner.
Well, I mean, the biggest winner of the entire weekend.
Yeah.
So far. That's what you want.
Yeah. Remember you sent me winners?
Yeah, I'm not going to give you the guys that I gave you for the winners.
Oh.
What? Why don't you ever choose the biggest one?
Because Adam should start with the biggest one.
Oh, it's my call?
I think so.
All right, fine. Brian Thomas Jr. is the biggest winner.
Okay.
He's the freaking man. And I'm going to go right to this buy or sell. I got some buy or sells from the audience. Buy or sell Brian Thomas Jr. This is from Camp Calhoun. Brian Thomas Jr. is the second best rookie wide receiver rest of season.
Yeah, you can buy it.
I'd still go third. Only 10 points behind league neighbors now.
Was ours per game? It was per game though.
No,
Right?
I don't think so. No, I think he's probably still third, but he's awesome, and I love him.
All right, yeah, he had a great day. Heath, who's the biggest loser?
Oh, like of the whole weekend, or just like of the show?
Do you want me to?
If I'm going with the biggest loser, I'm stealing Dave's. I went third today, sitting in mine. So I think the biggest loser was Travis Etienne.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Saved by the bell, saved by the targets. Still scored 12 PPR fantasy points because he had a 20% target share. But Tank Bigsby for the second week in a row ran so much better than Travis Etienne. Scored 2 touchdowns. Looks absolutely awesome. Etienne had 6 carries for 17 yards. I think the problem is we've got another set of teammates that we're going to rank between running back 20 and running back 28 every week. And it's going to be kind of annoying.
I would like to bring back a segment. Heath's Believe It or Not. Heath, believe it or not, this quote from Doug Peterson, tell me if you believe it. When he was asked about moving forward with Bigsby as the 1A, he said, quote, "No, not at all. Travis is our guy. Tank had a good game. That's just the way games go. Happy for Tank. Great for the offensive line. But no, Travis is our guy, and Tank had a good game today."
I still expect Travis Etienne to play the most snaps. I still expect him to dominate passing downs. And like I said, looking at this game, you would think Tank Bigsby, top 20 running back, Travis Etienne, PPR flex at best. I still think they're going to be very, very close on a week-to-week basis.
They were very close today. Bigsby, 40% of the snaps, Etienne, 39%. They each had 1 of 2 snaps inside the 5. But here's something that stood out to me. Etienne played 5 of 28 snaps in the second half.
Wow.
Feels like they're going to go hot hand, which makes me nervous about starting either one of them.
Yeah, well, Bigsby doesn't do enough in the passing game yet. And Etienne, I just want to bring this up. He had, what do you have, 6 catches, right? 6 catches?
6 for 43 on
all of them were on first and second down. So I don't know if that means anything, but he's not even really the third down back necessarily because they'll bring in Dearness Johnson. And Bigsby, 13 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns after 7 for 90 at Houston the week before. So this was against the Colts. Not a good defense, but he's running better. There's no question he's running better. And I really think, based on what I've seen the last 2 weeks, okay, I feel 60% confident that if they had first and goal from the 1 yard line, Tank Bigsby would be the guy to get that carry.
I think he might get it 60% of the time.
Yeah, I think that
of the time. It's every time.
It's every time. All right. So those we have more players that aren't on the Jaguars to talk about. Also, I want to talk about CBS Sports HQ because you're sitting there. It's Sunday. There's a lot of stuff you missed. There was a great baseball game going on during the football game. The Phillies with a walk-off win. there's a lot to catch up on. There's hockey and basketball and all. There's probably golf. I don't know. But watch CBS Sports H. Is there golf, Schaefer? No golf. No golf.
No, golf's over.
Golf's over. Okay. But when there is golf, CBS Sports HQ is all over it. They've got really the best coverage of sports. So just check it out. And it's on the CBS Sports app. Give it a watch. You'll be like, whoa, this is exactly the kind of sports coverage that I'm looking for. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. So here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app. You sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit $10, place your first wager on any game, and you're going to receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. If your bet loses, just make sure you use that bonus code FANTASY when you sign up on BetMGM. All right, big day for the Bengals and the Ravens, the Colts and the Jaguars. That was a bonanza. The Giants with a very surprising performance out in Seattle. I'm excited to talk about those running backs because I personally would like to see Tyrone Tracy be the lead running back for the Giants. He looked great today. You had another good day from DeAndre Swift. Is it just because he took advantage of the matchup, or is this going to continue? All right, that's coming up. Let's do a little buy or sell and talk about some first-round picks. Buy or sell from Mo. Buy low on Bijan and Breece Hall. Sell high on Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall, in his last 2 games, has 19 carries for 27 yards and 5 catches for 28 yards against the Broncos and Vikings. Garrett Wilson had 13 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown on 22 freaking targets today. And he gets the Bills and the Steelers and the Patriots next week, next 3 weeks.
All 3 of them?
I don't think he can overcome that.
It's triple coverage. Anyway, so the buy or sell is buy low on Bijan and Breece, sell high on Garrett Wilson.
So if you can turn Garrett Wilson into one of those running backs and you throw in something with Garrett Wilson, then yeah, you could probably do that just on the hunch that the Jets are going to get Davante Adams, because if they do that, I know that there was a great game today for Garrett Wilson, and finally he's over 15 PPR points. But I think it's going to be the Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams show if Davante goes to the Jets. If Davante doesn't go to the Jets, then maybe you're making a mistake by getting rid of Garrett Wilson, because he's going to get like a 40% target share every single week, I guess, moving forward. But I would definitely try and move Garrett Wilson based on this game. And we do need to talk about Breece Hall.
Yeah.
So you still have, you said Wilson and something. You're saying you still have both Bijan and Breece ahead of Wilson on the trade chart.
I mean, I haven't started messing with the trade chart.
In your mind.
Yeah. So in my mind, yes, he's still going to be. I'm going to have a hard time raising the value on Garrett Wilson, knowing that there could be a pretty big anvil dropping on his head. By the way, let's have some trivia. Who has more fantasy points? Bijan Robinson in week 5 or Breece Hall over his past 2 games?
In PPR?
In PPR.
Breece Hall.
Bijan
by 0.2 of a fantasy point.
Yeah. You know, and the other thing about Garrett Wilson, just to keep in mind, and this would apply to Breece Hall too, is that Aaron Rodgers is obviously playing through stuff, and he has now an ankle sprain. He's grabbing the back of his legs.
Oh,
so
man.
They have a good backup in Tyrod Taylor, but I think you still want Aaron Rodgers out there for sure.
It looked like Aaron Rodgers' career was over because he got bent all backwards and limped off the field, and then there was a turnover, there was a penalty on running into the kicker, and so the Jets kept the ball. Rodgers goes right back out there and he finishes the game. Very funny kind of series of events that ended up there. But you're right, like that's going to be another issue with anybody who's catching passes.
Oh, he's here. Stop talking about him.
Yeah, buddy.
Jamey's here. What's up, Jamey?
Yo,
right, next
I
buyer.
beat you by 100.
Oh my God, you crushed me.
Why'd you start Evan Ingram?
Okay, here's why I started Evan Ingram.
Oh my gosh.
Because I didn't want to drop anyone. I knew I had almost no chance to win. I had the worst team, and I was like, I'm not going to drop.
Can I tell you something similar? I had a very similar situation, and I dropped Cam Akers, which I didn't want to do, but I did it because I needed to pick up somebody to win, and I won.
Good, but
I'll never try to lose.
I wasn't trying to lose. I'm not going to drop someone just to pick up some bum tight end who's going to get me 6 points. All right.
I picked up that bum Demarcus Robinson against Robert Turbin and FFT.
Did you win?
Not yet, but I've got a chance.
All right. You caught a touchdown. Very nice. Okay, listen, Jayden Reed from Pat Kenny. Jayden Reed is a top 10 wide receiver rest of season. Buy or sell?
I ranked him that way this week. I think he'll be close to it. He's great.
I'll buy it.
I will sell because they're going to get some injured guys coming back.
You mean
he's not better than AJ Brown? He's not better than the Rams guys. He's not better than Nico Collins when he's healthy. He's not better than Malik Neighbors. He's close. Top 20.
It's just amazing that he's making the most incredible plays, but he makes them almost every week. And it's not the kind of stuff that you want to bank on. But that catch he made today was,
that was a great catch, but it was just bad defense. But 3 guys were standing right there.
Yeah. That had so much air on it. They were like, where the hell's the ball? But yeah, it was a great play. I'll do one more buy or sell here before we go to break. Buy or sell from Devin. Javonte Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence have turned the corner and will be more reliable rest of season. Javonte Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence have turned the corner and will be more reliable rest of season. Buy or sell?
They all feel like sell highs to me.
Trevor Lawrence gets the Bears next week. Nobody's going to start him in that game. Or should. Javonte, I think as long as there's only 2 guys involved, he's in a good spot.
Yeah.
I'll buy Javonte. Who's the third one?
Garrett Wilson.
It's no, because if they trade for Devontae Adams, he stinks.
Yeah. I'm buying Javonte, but that's it. And man, Bo Nix. I know it was the Raiders. Bo Nix made some really nice throws today. Like he should have had a lot better day than he had.
Bo Nix also stole a touchdown from Javonte, which just sucks.
Now, let me tell you something about Javonte. It's 2 weeks in a row where both he and McLaughlin have had their goal line chances or their inside the 5 chances. And Javonte's come really close. And then on the next play, you get a touchdown from Jaleel McLaughlin. So if one or both of those touchdowns was going to Javonte, we might be talking about him as a sell high or something like that, or a must start. But it's been pretty close to like really, really good production, at least this week. Last week, I think if I recall, the yards were bad. Jamey against the Jets was terrible. But it's kind of frustrating. It's like he totally dominates the carries, but then they seem to split near the goal line, which is weird. But it is what it is. All right. Can we do this one in 30 seconds? Buy or sell from PJ. Kyler Murray will not finish as a top 12 quarterback. And I will say this one came in like the 3rd quarter when Kyler was not having a very good game. But buy or sell, Kyler Murray will not finish as a top 12 quarterback.
So if we sell, that means he will?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll sell.
So he had 25 fantasy points.
Yes.
He also ran more today than he has in the last couple of weeks. And I think the fact that he had a game without McBride, Marvin Harrison's still a rookie. That's improving. He missed Michael Wilson on a big play down the field today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll take him as top 12 guy if somebody's willing to sell him.
All right. That's Kyler Murray. And that is the end of our first segment. We'll be back with news and notes, winners, losers, top 5 at each position, a breakdown of every game. And we'll be right back on FFT.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Your news and notes. So Aaron Rodgers has an ankle injury. He did return to the game. They get Buffalo next week. Aiden O'Connell replaced Gardner Minshew. Antonio Pierce did not commit to a quarterback for next week yet. They are playing the Steelers.
Can they trade Adams and both quarterbacks for a quarterback?
Jameis Winston came in late for Deshaun Watson in a blowout and completed one pass.
Ooh, what if they get Tyrod Taylor back for like Minshew and Adams? Like Taylor, Mike Williams, because that's part of the deal reportedly. Taylor, Mike Williams, and a pick.
Okay. I like it. It feels like a fantasy trade, but I like it. Bryce Young came in late in the game for Andy Dalton, probably just because these were blowouts. Running back news. Devon Etienne left with a concussion. Zach Moss left with an ankle injury. Achane's going into his bye week. Zach Moss
came back.
He did come back, but Heath was taught. He want to break this down, Heath?
He came back and had a carry, but Chase Brown had all the overtime rush attempts, and I think all the carries but one after that ankle injury.
Yeah, let's just make that a permanent thing.
Who was it? Joe Mixon came back in the game.
Yep.
After he had his high ankle sprain.
Looked just like that. Yeah, it looked really bad.
So I would not. Yeah, I think we should not expect Moss.
Oh, Dave, maybe what I said in the room is going to happen.
What'd you say?
Dave and Pete were giving me a hard time, mostly Pete, about my start of the week, and I said, "Oh, I'll probably just make Chase Brown because it's a Sunday night game."
Yeah, so there.
Monday night game.
I already called the start of the week for next week.
Next week's Sunday night. Oh, it's same game.
Adding another door.
Same game.
Oh, Daniel
Jones. Heath is all about Daniel Jones. He loves Daniel Jones.
Start of the week, Jamey. Go for it.
The Bengals stink.
Yeah, the Bengals are not going to 1-5. Like, they're definitely winning. Them losing was the worst thing that could have happened to the Giants.
They are the team to beat.
So, also Aaron Jones left with a hip injury.
Yeah, I want to know without Malik Neighbors.
They're going to their bye. Yeah, wild game. Bad loss for the Seahawks. All right, so Aaron Jones, Devon Achane, Zach Moss. Those are the three running back injuries we're keeping an eye on right now. Nico Collins has a hamstring injury. It's weird because if you listen to FFT Express, I'm saying the same things, but I just can't believe how disappointing Tank Dell was.
Yes.
But I have him in one league, and I am definitely starting him next week. First of all, my team sucks, but I'm definitely starting.
You're starting him in Nico plays?
No, but hamstring injury, I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling like there's going to be a miss there, but obviously I'm guessing.
I would guess he sits because they could beat the Patriots without him.
And then I still think you're taking a chance starting Tank Dell because
Yeah.
of the Patriots. That could be a game where Stroud doesn't have to do a whole lot.
Well, it depends if Mixon plays or not.
Yeah, that would also hurt them.
Gabe Davis left in the fourth quarter. I didn't see any tight end injuries. Not a lot of injuries, knock on wood. Didn't see any tight end injuries.
He didn't play in the first three quarters?
He did. He had
a fumble, right?
He did fumble. He sure as hell fumbled.
I'm kidding.
And he had 3 catches for 38 yards in that fumble.
I can't believe we spent.
Did we find out if Jordan Whittington was hurt?
No, I don't know.
He left the final play, right before the final play.
Okay.
I'll look for it.
Other news to keep an eye on. Cleveland had a bad day. I think their center got hurt. Their safety, Grant Delpit, was evaluated for a head injury. Denzel Ward, their best cornerback, he left with an injury. Houston safety, Jimmy Ward, left with a groin injury. Seattle cornerback, Reek Woolen, left with an ankle injury. They have a Thursday game against San Francisco. San Francisco had some injuries. Talanoa Hufanga, he left with a wrist injury. What is it, Dave?
Hufanga.
Yeah, I left the G out. I knew it didn't sound right. He left with a wrist injury. Their kicker left, Jake Moody. He got hurt. And Miami safety, Javon Holland, left with an injury. All right, let's go to some winners and losers. And Jamey, you can start it off. Boy, as someone who has Deebo Samuel in a couple leagues, was not happy that it was such a big Brandon Aiyuk game, but it was definitely an Aiyuk game. 8 for 147 on 11 targets against the Cardinals. And do you think it's just kind of going to be random? One of them is going to be bad every week between the 3 big pass catchers?
I mean, Purdy was bad today. So let's see how they bounce back. I think it's a good matchup against Seattle, especially if, they're down Woolen on a short week. So the only thing that's so weird right now watching San Francisco is they're not making plays after the catch. The yards after catch are just not there for them. And so will that start to change? McCaffrey is not going to play this week, but he's reportedly potentially back after week 6. So does that change some things with the offense and what do they do there? But in terms of Aiyuk, this was coming. He wasn't going to be this bad for this long. And so it felt like he was on pace for 200 yards. I think he had 100 yards in a quarter and a half. He was on pace for a 200-yard game. So they kind of, I think, just either Cardinals figured them out or Purdy stopped throwing or whatever. It was just a bad second half across the board. In any event, I think you just view Aiyuk and Samuel as most likely, depending on how many teams are on a bye and what the injuries are, as number 2 receivers, and Kittle's the number 1 tight end. And yes, there's probably going to be one guy that disappoints on a weekly basis.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, only Aiyuk had 1 catch where he got a lot of yards after. But I think that was about it for the whole game.
Well, remember, they've changed for whatever reason. They're throwing the ball downfield so much. The more you throw downfield, the less yak you're typically going to have. Heath, I'm sorry. I have to apologize to you. I dropped Caleb Williams in our 10-team Superflex League this morning.
That's a good choice.
And he's one of Jamey's winners. So my
How are
bad.
you dropping Caleb Williams in a Superflex league?
We have 4 quarterbacks.
This is the same league that Adam once called me an idiot moron for dropping elite quarterback Carson Wentz.
Can I tell you who I picked up, though?
Carson Wentz?
Tank Bigsby. Okay.
Did you start him?
No.
Okay. Great.
So what you're saying
Great.
is, just so I understand this, you would rather have Tank Bigsby than Caleb Williams in a Superflex league.
He's our 4th quarterback. So, yeah, he's your winner today. Let's be real. He has been crap this year.
Who are your other 3? Well, 2 of his last 3 games, he's been good. Who are your other 3?
21.3 fantasy points on 52 pass attempts against the Colts does not fire me up. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about my team. Let's talk about Caleb Williams because
it may not fire you up, but that's better than Patrick Mahomes. So I would take Caleb Williams right now over Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, that's fine. But I'm saying this was by far his best game, and it was against his easiest opponent by far, I'd say, in Carolina. Oh, Indianapolis bad too. But do you think he's just a matchups guy or what for Caleb Williams, who has Jacksonville next week?
He's absolutely just a matchup guy at this point. But in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues, he's a must-start quarterback. So I think in terms of what how you're viewing him, he's getting better. And that's the best part of this. Last week the run games got solved and it carried over to this week. The offensive line is starting to protect a little bit better. He had a huge game connecting with DJ Moore today, which has been, somewhat of an issue. So that's a positive in the right direction. And hopefully as Keenan Allen gets through this heel injury and maybe starts to look like himself again, because week 1, remember, he led the team in targets. And Rome Odunze, who's a rookie, starts to get a little bit better, more acclimated to the league. We start to see even more of these performances from Caleb Williams. So I think he's trending in the right direction. He's not a must-start quarterback by any stretch. But next week, if you're stuck, you would love to start him against Jacksonville because Joe Flacco just tore apart this team. And while Caleb Williams won't do that, he's still capable of 20-plus fantasy points.
You left part of the story out. Are you kidding me? We had 4 quarterbacks rostered in this league. Joe Burrow and Justin Fields, who we started. That's fantastic. We have Andy Dalton on our bench, and you dropped Caleb Williams. Are you kidding me?
Listen, really,
you idiot moron. We're not even asking. Hey, man, you think we should drop Caleb Williams or Andy Dalton?
You don't even make any transactions. I'm the only one who makes transactions.
Gosh.
Was it like 12:53 and you went into a fit of panic? Like, what's the thought process?
The thought process is honestly Caleb Williams before, let's.
There's no way Caleb Williams is going to do something against the Panthers that makes me regret this. But Andy Dalton against the Bears, I don't want to leave him out there. Somebody might pick him up after this game.
I'm not playing it week to week like that. I'm taking a longer view here.
Yeah, the longer view.
The longer view.
Our quarterback in the future.
This is a dynasty league. This isn't a dynasty league. Look,
gosh.
Rewind 12 hours before the game started today. Caleb Williams was having a bad season. Andy Dalton was playing better than him. Andy Dalton was playing better than Caleb Williams.
Oh, boy.
He was. I mean, you can't deny that. This is revisionist history.
Revisionist history.
It is.
They both have the same amount of games over 20 fantasy points prior today.
Each of the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, he played twice as many games as Dalton.
I am the
He's also twice the
biggest
age of
Andy Dalton
Caleb
fan.
Williams.
All right, okay. All right, Dave's winners are DJ Moore and Chase
Who's the
Brown.
quarterback again? I know it's not Andy Dalton.
Yes. Go ahead.
So normally my winners are guys whose fantasy values change. Everybody's starting DJ Moore anyway, but we can feel a lot better about it. He's had at least 8 targets now in 4 or 5 games. I think he's pretty clearly the lead wide receiver for Caleb Williams, and B, among his best downfield threats. I don't know when the light switch will go on for Odunze to do what he did against Indianapolis. Maybe it's going to take another injury to Keenan Allen. I don't know when Allen is going to be his old self again. That might not come. So I think DJ Moore is just going to continue to be the main catalyst of this passing game. and the guy that Caleb Williams trusts moving forward. So that's why DJ Moore is one of my winners.
And Chase Brown is obviously going to be a winner of Zach Moss this time, but he probably would have been a winner anyway.
Yes. And it was actually shocking to me because I watched that game. It was shocking that Zach Moss played like 2/3 of the snaps. I actually didn't think he played that much. It really felt like Chase Brown was working like all the running downs early on. It didn't work out that way, but Zach Moss he's the better passing downs running back. He will still have a role there, provided that he's healthy. But Chase Brown just looks like the better running back. He was in a bunch of high value situations, caught a touchdown in short yardage, had a 2-point conversion from the one. He's Cincinnati's best running back. And I think we need to be serious about ranking him as a number 2 running back, even when Zach Moss is healthy.
All right. Heath's winners are Daniel Jones, who scored 26.1 fantasy points at Seattle, and Tucker Kraft, who had one huge play, but 2 touchdowns. 5 targets. He turned it into 4 catches, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns at the Rams, and he gets the Cardinals next week. Daniel Jones and Tucker Kraft. Go ahead, Heath.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker Kraft, I think you say 5 targets, and that's like, is it really sustainable? But it was only on 26 pass attempts for Jordan Love. So it's probably even a higher rate than his 9 last week on 54. A clear top tight end for the Packers, and unlike Dontavian Wicks, doing something with his extra opportunity, catching the passes that are thrown his way and hit him in the hands. Must start tight end until he proves otherwise, probably for 2 weeks. Like, I'm not going to take him out of the top 10 after he has one bad game, because all the tight ends have at least one bad game. And Daniel Jones has been playing better and better football in this new system. And it was easy to say, well, yeah, it's all because of Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is amazing. And Malik Neighbors is amazing, but he did it without Neighbors today, and he gets the Bengals next week. And you could actually consider starting Daniel Jones.
How about this? Daniel Jones has at least 22 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games.
Mm-hmm. And 3 of his next 4 matchups are pretty favorable. Cincinnati, Philadelphia, at Pittsburgh, then Washington. Losers.
Best game was today without Malik Neighbors.
It wasn't just his best game of the year. It was his best game since the playoff game against the Vikings. He was actually legitimately good today. But today is a weird day. Losers. Heath, you have Christian Kirk and Amari Cooper. They were started in 79% of leagues for Kirk, 86% of leagues for Cooper. Go ahead.
Kirk salvaged his day a little bit because he had a 61-yard reception, but that is not something you can count on Christian Kirk doing on a regular basis. Just 4 targets in this game. Brian Thomas is the clear number 1 wide receiver, and Kirk needs to be like a 1B at worst to have a chance, because his generally not super efficient in turning his fantasy targets into fantasy points. I think he's a low-end number 3 wide receiver in weeks where we have most of our wide receivers healthy and not on a bye. Amari Cooper, like, he's still got the targets, but if he's not going to convert them into production against the Washington Commanders, if that offensive line can't protect Deshaun Watson against the Commanders, if Watson can't hit wide receivers against the Commanders, and I don't know how we ever believe until he proves it.
Oh, we'll believe in him when the Bills or Chiefs make a call and he's on one of those teams soon.
That would be wonderful.
Could happen. Cleveland's 1
and both teams should.
Yeah.
Hey, going back to the first loser, Kirk, what happens to his targets when Evan Ingram comes back?
Well, they're not going to go up.
Yeah.
Is it going to affect Brian Thomas?
I don't think so.
No.
I think Brian Thomas is that dude, and I think the Jaguars know it.
All right, Dave's losers are Breece Hall, who we talked about, and Travis Etienne, who we talked about. So, Dave, you can get a snack.
We didn't get into Breece Hall that much, and I'm not going to try and say that everything's fine with Breece Hall. I think the issue for the Jets has to do more with the offensive line than it does with either of their running backs, because it's not like Braylon Allen is crushing it and Breece Hall sucks, but they can't run the ball right now. It's pretty gross, and I don't know how people are going to feel great about Breece Hall. And already I've gotten posts on X about, well, is this the time to buy low on Breece Hall?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Next week they get Buffalo. It's as good a matchup as you'll find. They allow the most fantasy points to running backs.
Still going to share, and he's getting all the high value touches. But
yeah, I'd be buying because he's never going to be this cheap.
would you pay 3rd round value for him?
100%.
A little hesitant,
Okay.
especially
3rd round
if
value.
Buffalo goes up
Yes.
in New York.
I'm not sure I'd pay 2nd, but I'd pay 3rd.
Okay. Well, now it's on the Breece Hall manager. Is he going to accept 3rd? I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
This wasn't an easy matchup. Next week is easy, especially if Ed Oliver stays out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but seems like when they lost their right tackle, Morgan Moses.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't know, is Morgan Moses really the reason why the Jets aren't?
No, I just don't think the line.
The passing game work has disappeared, which is frustrating. He's sharing with Braylon Allen, which is clearly frustrating. But I mean, you look at it again. This Broncos defense has probably not got the respect that we certainly at the time, and the weather was a factor there. We knew that the Minnesota defense was good. He struggled. So next week is telling. If he can't do it against Buffalo, then you either if you trade for him now, then you made a mistake. But I mean, between Dario Gumawale and Cam Akers, they had success, and those are combined nowhere near Breece Hall.
Okay. Casey in the chat says, Adam just offered me Justin Jefferson and Caleb Williams for Peyton Barber and Andy Dalton in the FFT Open. Jamie's losers are Deontay Johnson and Zach Moss. Zach Moss is, we've talked about that. But what do you think about Deontay Johnson? 3 catches for 23 yards on 6 targets at the Bears. We took the over in the props. We lost this one. We had a good week, though. But yeah, you going to go back to him against Atlanta next week?
100%. But at some point it was going to either run into a tough matchup or Andy Dalton was going to struggle or both. And that's what happened today, so I wouldn't panic, but it wasn't just going to be, okay, Andy Dalton's there and he's the best receiver in fantasy. And so the Bears are good and Jalen Johnson's good. And this is a secondary that, you might want to consider not necessarily avoiding the slam dunks, but the next tier down, they could be in a little bit of trouble. Like Brian Thomas, I don't think is someone you're sitting, but just probably lower expectations because the secondary is good.
All right, take a little time out here on Fantasy Football today. We'll give you the top 5 at each position, and we will give you a thought on each game when we come back.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Okay, so at quarterback, who are the top 5? What do you think, guys?
Joe Flacco.
He is number 4.
Kyler Murray.
Burrow.
Kyler Murray did not crack, not even close.
Oh, Lamar and Burrow.
Lamar and Burrow.
Lamar and Burrow are 1 and Burrow is 1. Lamar is 3. You got to think.
Cousins had 500.
Kirk Cousins, yes, he's number 2. Joe Flacco's 4, and Baker Mayfield is 5. Burrow, Cousins, Jackson, Flacco, Mayfield. I asked this to Heath on FFT Express. He doesn't think the answer is yes. I'll ask you guys, do we have a quarterback controversy in Indianapolis?
So our former colleague many years ago, Greg Doyle, who's a columnist for the Indianapolis Star, he wrote that the Colts should play Joe Flacco now and develop Anthony Richardson for next year because he missed his essentially development year because his rookie campaign was cut short with a shoulder injury. So let him get a lot of practice time under his belt, and you try and win right now with Joe Flacco. There's clearly 2 different schools of thought depending on how you feel about that. You're the Colts. Do you want to try and develop him while playing him, or do you want to give him an opportunity to learn under Flacco and maybe not have to deal with some of the injuries since he's not going to be 100%? And Flacco clearly can get some wins if he plays the way that he plays. I think if you are in the Michael Pittman, Josh Downs camp, you obviously want to see Joe Flacco as the starting quarterback. If you are in the Anthony Richardson camp, clearly you want to see him play. So at this point, I would probably play Flacco for at least 1 more week.
They're 2 and 3. They take on the Titans and then the Dolphins in week 6 and 7.
So I would go Titans with Flacco and Richardson, give him another week to get the hip healthy because that's a much easier opponent. Titans are going to be tough on no matter who's quarterback there.
I mean, I think they could win with either quarterback against Miami. And I think they do need Flacco if they want to knock off Tennessee. So I kind of agree. Let's roll with Flacco.
They're not a contender
after 2 weeks. If
they have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, you don't bench the kid with this defense so that Joe Flacco can maybe carry you to a wild card loss.
All right, let's move on.
My feelings.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. I guess it was a tough question because we don't really know the answer.
5. If they lose those next 2 games, then it's going to be Richardson moving forward.
You also just lost an offensive lineman, and you had one missing from the game. Do you really want to throw Richardson out there against that front?
All right, let's go to the running backs. The top 5 running backs. Actually, so far, it's a pretty lousy week for running backs, honestly. There's only one running back scored more than 20 fantasy points in PPR non-decimal scoring, and he is
Bigsby.
Yeah, better than Caleb Williams. Tank Bigsby, 25 points. After that, DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson. How about that? Trey Sermon, 6 catches for him. He also scored.
Trey Sermon was top 5.
Chuba Hubbard and James Cook tied with Trey Sermon. But Heath, DeAndre Swift backing it up with 21 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. 2 catches, 47 yards. And also, Roschon Johnson scored 2 touchdowns. They had 3 rushing. Yeah, I know. But what do you think about Swift going forward?
I benched Roschon Johnson for Emmanuel Wilson. That felt pretty good today in a league. I think you just view DeAndre Swift almost right back where he was when we drafted him. Like an RB2 that's going to have some spike weeks and some awful weeks. And that's exactly what he's done. And I think there are more spike weeks and more awful weeks to come.
I think he's the bear that's benefited from the matchups the last 2 weeks. And he'll benefit again against the Jaguars in London.
Jaguars don't have that bad of a run defense, got to say.
Well, I mean, Trey Sermon just finished as a top 5 fantasy.
Yeah, but he didn't run well against them. He had 10 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown and 6 catches for 25 yards. But they are a bad defense, so you can score.
Point. It's Trey Sermon.
Ramondre Stevenson, though, it's a nice response from him. He had 12 carries for 89 yards. Gibson had 6 carries for 52 yards.
Stevenson left, right?
He did get hurt late in the game.
Sorry, I didn't see that either.
I think Gibson handled the last drive. I don't know if it was serious or not.
And Jordan Whittington, by the way, just to go back to that, his arm was in a sling, so that is an injury to keep in mind. They're going into their bye. But hopefully Stevenson, if he's healthy, has done enough to earn back the trust. Let's go to the top wide receivers. Jamar Chase is 1. Drake London way behind him at 2. Chase had a huge game, 10 for 193 and 2 touchdowns. Darnell Mooney, 3. T. Higgins, 4. So 2 Bengals and 2 Falcons. And Garrett Wilson is basically tied with T. Higgins. But 2 Bengals, 2 Falcons, and Garrett Wilson. Those are your top 5. And just give me a thought, Dave, on T. Higgins, who had 9 catches, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He was awesome, dominant inside the 10 for a couple touchdowns. Although one of them, let's call it dominant inside the 11, because one of the touchdowns was an 11-yard slant. Ravens defense, their secondary took a big step backward today. You didn't ask about this. You asked about Higgins, but I'm going to tell you about Chase's second touchdown. It was a screen pass at the line of scrimmage. He evaded 2 Ravens and then outran everybody else for a 70-yard touchdown. The guy's amazing. T. Higgins is an outstanding, maybe the best number 2 wide receiver. One of them, because I'm thinking about.
We're having a little bit of trouble with Dave's mic.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave. Dave, you want to hop out and come back in? I have a little bit of trouble with your mic. But I actually said the stat.
I thought it was a good Marcel.
The stat of the game that I gave when we previewed Baltimore-Cincinnati is that the Ravens went into week 5 having allowed the most completions of 20-plus yards and the most completions of 20-plus air yards. And I have a feeling that is not going to change after week 5. So they are big. They are big play prone, which is a little weird. Top 5 tight ends. We have 3 tight ends with 20 or more PPR fantasy points. Tucker Kraft, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, and then Isaiah Likely, of course, and Charlie Kohler. Holy cow. 2 Ravens tight ends not named Mark Andrews. That is unbelievable. Oh,
and he was involved today. Step in the right direction.
Actually, yeah, if you missed it, I think Kohler's touchdown. Right before that, Andrews was wide open. Mar Jackson underthrew it a little bit. Andrews made the catch, but he would have scored. And he was tackled at like the 2-yard line. He would have scored if it was a good throw. Also, I don't want to be like Lamar Jackson made one of the best plays of his career today. That touchdown pass to Likely, unreal. But, we've talked about Kraft a little, Likely and Kohler, whatever. But what about Brock Bowers? This was a nice game for him. Anything to take away from this, Jamey?
I thought he'd be a little bit more involved without Mayer there. And you know that there's going to be a lot of involvement with him once Devontae Adams is traded. So I think what we're looking at here is top 5 tight end, whether you want to call him 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, that's up to where you look at the other players, the position. But He's going to get fed targets. He's going to have a lot of opportunities. They're going to be trailing in a lot of games. The quarterback play is probably going to be crappy, but I mean, he's got superstar potential.
With that said, let's go to our games. Let's get to the games here. Let's just gonna take a look at the almost touchdown list. Tell you if there was there were a lot. So probably too much to get into. Terry McLaurin.
My favorite was Blake Corum, 2 opportunities.
Yeah.
Sean McVay was like, F it, get in there, Kyron.
Yeah, and Kyron Williams extended his streak of the longest active streak in the NFL, a touchdown in like 8 straight games now, I think, going back to last year. All right, Minnesota 23 and the Jets 17. We'll start international here, and let's get a takeaway. We've talked so much about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, but how about Allen Lazard? I mean, okay, I know we're going to say, well, if Davante Adams does not come to the Jets, like, I'm going to lump Allen Lazard in with another wide receiver who's available in some leagues. Do you think Lazard and Tyler Lockett deserve a little bit more respect?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are number 3 receivers during the bye weeks, 100%.
There you go. That's the key.
Okay. And on the Viking side, if there's an extended absence, 2 questions. First of all, should we drop Jordan Addison going into his bye week?
You definitely.
He's one of those guys, like, smart fantasy managers. Like if you have an Evan Ingram, for example, and you need to make a move, you drop them to go pick up someone to help you win. You don't want to drop Jordan Addison, but you can.
Yeah, and like if you were in a super flex league and you had to choose between dropping him or Caleb Williams, I'd drop him. But if you had to choose between dropping him or Andy Dalton, I might drop Andy Dalton.
Okay, in all seriousness, but if I had this conversation with you this morning, who would you have dropped, Dalton or Caleb Williams?
Dalton.
Now, I might have said whatever if you asked me a question.
Okay, so it wouldn't have been like a slam dunk obvious.
Well, I mean, it's a slam dunk obvious question. I just might not have cared.
If you felt comfortable, you said you have Fields and who else?
Burrow.
Fields and Burrow. Why would you not keep the guy who's got upside as opposed to the guy who may not hold the job for the rest of the season?
I feel like because I don't feel like Fields is necessarily an every week starter. And going into today, who did I feel more comfortable starting on a weekly basis? Forget about the matchups, because obviously I would have started Caleb over Dalton this week. But if they had neutral matchups, I would have said Dalton, because he was playing much better than Caleb Williams. Everything changes after
he played better in one game.
Why did
Caleb Williams was not playing well this year. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, he was playing like absolute garbage this year. His best game was 20 fantasy points on 52 pass attempts against the Indianapolis Colts. Let's stop acting like he was playing well. He was playing like crap.
And Dalton had a magical game against the Raiders.
Okay, and he was okay last week. He was okay. He was better than Caleb Williams has been. I will say that with confidence. He was better than Caleb Williams.
Tell me again why you had to drop one of those guys?
To pick up Tank Bigsby, which ended up being a pretty good move, if I have to say.
Did you start Bigsby?
No, it was a bench. These are both bench. These are bench players. It was it was looking ahead to possible value in the future, I guess. And all right. Anyway, all right. You know what? We'll save Ty Chandler.
The part is you share the team and you didn't consult your partner.
Share the team. The guy has not made one move, not one waiver claim the entire time. I think I've earned the right to make a move. Miami 15, New England 10.
Assumptive.
And
you did this after you had no sleep last night, right?
Yes. All right. We're thinking Tua's going to come back and everything's going to turn around, right?
I hope Tua comes back. I mean, this is awful. It's really awful to watch, and I mean, I just look, you want Tua to be healthy. That's the biggest thing, first and foremost. But to see what Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson have done to this offense, and it was interesting. Pete Prisco and Logan Ryan, who we do our show with on CBS Sports HQ, discussing this, and Pete brought up a great point. Like, Mike McDaniel has not changed the offense. Like, he's expecting Tyler Huntley to go in there and run the same offense. I don't know if that happened today. This was Pete's point going into the game. Like, you're asking him to be Tua and throw on time, on schedule, get these guys involved to the level that they have been. And it's just not working.
Yeah.
It looked better today. Matchup was better today.
Heath, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you on FFT Express.
Oh, okay.
Seeing Jalen Wright and Raheem Mostert do well, and seeing Etienne leave with a concussion. Well, let's just say he's back in 2 weeks after the bye week at the Colts. Do one or both of them eat into his value going forward?
Well, I think they eat into the workload we've seen from him the 2 weeks prior, because they were force feeding him, trying to find anything that would work for this offense. And if Mostert is healthy or Wright is effective, then this is going to be a full-blown committee. I would expect. Maybe we'll see a fewer carries for Etienne and a few more targets. But yeah, you should not expect him to be the workhorse lead back that he was for a couple of weeks. I think that was just a necessity, desperation thing.
If there is a team right now with Etienne that is desperate and losing, and you can get him dirt cheap, you should be trying to acquire him.
I agree with that. What was the split like in week 1 before Mostert got hurt? Mostert was taking some of the rushing down.
He got hurt earlier in that game, though, and Etienne had 7 catches.
Right. So, that's the thing that I love about this, is that Etienne's role in the passing game really shouldn't be affected once he's back.
Yeah, and as far as the Patriots go, we're just hoping that Ramondre Stevenson is the starter going forward, and no questions about it. And, but then again, you're probably not going to want to start him against the Texans, because we know he's pretty game script dependent. Baltimore 41 and Cincinnati 38. Just a fantastic game here. So if I have Zay Flowers, who had 12 targets, 7 catches for 111 yards, am I trying to sell? And do you think anybody would even bite? Dave?
What's the question?
Zay Flowers, 7 catches, 111 yards.
What's going on with the Sunday night game?
That's a weather delay.
Listen, this is the type of game you're going to get from Zay Flowers every single time the Ravens have a hard time running the football. I didn't think they would have a hard time today because they're playing Cincinnati, but they did, and Zay Flowers ended up having a great game.
I just think it's anytime they're going to face a competitive offense. I don't know if it's run the ball or not run the ball, because they're going to be throwing a little bit more if that game dictates that's what's needed. And so next week they're playing a Commanders offense that has been putting up points on everybody. So I think you should be happy to start Zay Flowers next week. But yes, he should be considered a sell high candidate, because you're probably going to get something great in return for him.
I don't know if he will. I mean, I wouldn't give up something great for Zay Flowers. He's had 2 horrible games before this,
and 3 heavily targeted games too, with two of them being great.
If this is his season, though, that's frustrating. Like, I don't
know. There are plenty of fantasy managers, I think, that looked at Zay Flowers. Remember what the ADP was in the early part of the process, that were drafting him in the first 4 rounds. So, when you have the Rashee Rice manager, or the Puka Nacua manager, or the Cooper Kupp manager, and you're looking at getting the number 1 receiver for the Ravens, of what he's done in 3 games, 2 of them being very successful. I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster trade, but you could still probably get something pretty good in return, especially if you're getting a struggling player. Like, if I could turn Zay Flowers potentially into Devon Etienne, if I'm not playing Flowers, I would do that.
This is my favorite game. Where does Zay Flowers currently rank in PPR fantasy points per game at wide receiver?
31.
This is your favorite game?
Yeah.
31.
My favorite game is
33.
Yeah, I'll say he's inside the top 30.
39.
I say he's inside the top 40.
Just behind Jordan Addison.
Okay. Yes. Dave, you're too loud now. Sorry.
Come on, Dave.
When your mic check on no, it's not his fault. Not his fault at all. And by the way, just to say, this start Zay Flowers when the Ravens are going to face good offenses. They faced Buffalo and Dallas the previous 2 weeks.
Those aren't good offenses.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to say then. All right, let's go to our next game. It is Houston 23 and Buffalo 20. Are we worried about Josh Allen? 7.3 fantasy points at Baltimore last week. 16.6 fantasy points at Houston. This may have been the worst I've ever seen him look. 9 of 30. Heath for 131 yards. What the hell?
I'm worried about why they put him back in the game. But yeah, he doesn't have any wide receivers.
Is it just as simple as Khalil Shakir will make him like a stud again, or no?
I don't know, because he's also not running as much.
Yeah.
And James Cook is scoring touchdowns inside the 5-yard line.
On the level of like 0 to Breece Hall, how worried are you about Josh Allen?
I wouldn't even have said I'm worried. Like, he's still don't even think about it. Start him every week and don't worry about the position starter.
Okay.
I feel the same way.
All right, same question about CJ Stroud. He really hasn't been that good. Heath, can you look up your favorite game? Where does CJ Stroud
you want to do Josh Allen or CJ Stroud?
Let's do both.
Okay. Josh Allen is QB7 in between Jaden Daniels and Kyler Murray. And CJ Stroud is QB13 in between Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts.
I know. He lost Nico Collins, but he hasn't really been that great this season. What is your read on CJ Stroud, guys?
As long as Nico Collins doesn't have a long-term injury, there's still top 5 upside there.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, Chicago 36.
God, the weather in Pittsburgh looks miserable.
It's hailing.
Yeah.
Adam, look in the private chat. I sent you a video if you wanted to play it.
Oh, we can play that, Schaefer.
Adam is mesmerized.
Oh man.
Just insane weather there.
Is there any chance they're going to push it to tomorrow?
What do I look like? The schedule guy?
All right, Chicago 36, Carolina 10. Which quarterback would you rather have rest of the season? Okay. Chuba Hubbard, so good.
How much fab would you have? Is it fab?
Yeah. I can get him back. I'll get him back next week.
How much fab you have to spend to get Caleb Williams back?
By the way, it's a 10-team league. I should clarify that. It's a 10-team league.
So 100%.
Quarterbacks on waivers.
100%. It will require whatever fab is left, and that might be not enough to get him.
I wonder how much fab it would cost you to get Andy Dalton.
It's not his fault. It's like he's trying so hard. Dave, your mic's too loud.
I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
All right. Sorry, man. That sucks. Well, all right. In all seriousness, if you look at this game,
he's the only one in the office. Like his setup should be the best.
No, the Panthers had a super tough matchup, and the Bears had a super easy matchup. And how much of that should we be factoring in? I don't know. Maybe on the Panther side, we've kind of talked about the Bears, but on the Panther side, can you trust Dalton against Atlanta? I mean,
you got to wonder how many more losses until they go back to Bryce Young if they do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right, I get it. It was a terrible move. Xavier Leggett, hold him or keep him. He's 52% roster. He had 1 catch on 1 target.
Well, he was injured, right?
How much did he play? Let me see his snap share. Why did I miss all these injuries? I'm really off my game. 10:30 p.m. start time yesterday.
I gotta go.
You have to go too?
Yeah,
oh God! All right.
Just the last thing Adam wanted tonight was getting left on the stream alone with me.
Well, I don't understand where all these injuries came from. I got it. All right, sorry. Xavier Leggett played 21 snaps, so we'll check on him. This game is a little bit boring, but Cole Kmet had 3 catches for 57 yards on 4 targets. Does that do anything for you?
He's a tight end, and I probably if there wasn't somebody like Tucker Kraft on the waiver wire, I probably wouldn't drop him. Rank the NFC North tight ends rest of season.
Okay. Laporta.
Over Hawkinson?
Yeah. Laporta, Hawkinson, Kraft, Kmet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How would you rank them?
Oh, I asked you.
Let me ask you about Washington 34, Cleveland 13. Somehow, if you played against Jayden Daniels, you got lucky. Yeah, he had a lot of. He could have had a 35-point game. He ended up with 21.7 fantasy points. He gave Brian Robinson a couple of touchdowns here. We know that the Cleveland Browns just have a terrible offense. I wonder what you think about Nick Chubb when he comes back.
You got to hope that the offense is partially made better by him, and partially maybe they still have an offensive lineman they could get back, right?
Yeah, many. I mean, because now their center's banged up. You could see in a month they could have a healthy offensive line.
Right. So the other thing will be are they still committed to this pass way more than they should be, or they go back to their run heavy scheme? I'm going to be pretty skeptical about Chubb probably, but he's going to be a low end RB2 most likely, because I don't think that they'll just go back to Nick Chubb. I mean, they've always had a 2-back system, and I don't think they go back to him having the same workload he had before the injury.
And I got to say, I was really annoyed by Deontay Foreman's role in here. He had as many carries as Jerome Ford. I don't get that. This could have been a good game for Jerome Ford, but and then Foreman, did Foreman get a touchdown in this game?
Well, what about Jerry McNichols' role?
Yeah, and then McNichol. Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of late in the game, right? So, but
it was mostly fourth quarter, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, it's a really good offense. Now McLaurin, just about to have. Is he just going to be a stud?
This was a good day. That should have been a great day. If he didn't drop that touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a little bit skeptical that he's going to be a stud on a team that's throwing the ball 25-ish times a game, but he's doing it over and over.
112 yards on 8 targets for Terry McLaurin. I think the difference between him now and earlier in the year is just Jaden Daniels is it took him till week 3, and then he started throwing these deep balls just beautifully. You know, everything was short the first 2 weeks, but now he is doing exactly what I was hoping he would do for McLaurin, which is find him down the field. Jacksonville 37, Indianapolis 34.
Man, we talked about this game a lot.
Yes, we sure did. You want Pittman, Josh Downs?
Bad day for Pittman. I would not be surprised if Josh Downs is the best Colts wide receiver rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, a good day for Pittman in terms of the fantasy production, but Downs had 4 more targets. And basically, it gets either as many or more targets than Pittman every time they play.
Yes, and it does more with them. I mean, he didn't score the touchdown today, but does more with them in terms generally of yards and catches.
It is just really funny how Anthony Richardson is so bad for Michael Pittman's value.
Yeah, and I think like the Flacco effect, while I was completely wrong on him, and it would have been regardless, was a little bit overblown today by the fact that Jacksonville had so many big plays and so many quick scores. They ran 69 offensive plays and chasing the score, like 45 pass attempts. It's tough to know how much do you adjust their offensive game flow going from Richardson to Flacco. I didn't adjust quite enough, but also I don't like 45 pass attempts puts the 12 targets for Downs in a little bit of context also. And what in the world do you do with Alec Pierce?
Nothing.
You don't do anything with him, but
I'm not picking him up. I mean, the guy needs to catch a 60-yard touchdown basically to be
right.
Yeah.
And he's done it in 3 out of 5 weeks.
Yeah. 3 catches, 134 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Adonai Mitchell played more today as well. All right, let's go to the late games. Arizona 24, San Francisco 23 is a hell of a win for the Cardinals. Kyler with his second best game of the season, 26 fantasy points. James Conner was okay. Yeah, what do you think about Marvin Harrison? 2 catches, 36 yards on 7 targets.
The 49ers did a really good job of taking him away. And I haven't seen the entire route tree, but I watched a little bit of this game. And again, it seemed like another one where he was spending a lot of time on the boundary. And that has happened a couple of times to him this season. But the other thing is Kyler really trusts Michael Wilson, and Kyler's going to throw the ball to Trey McBride 7 to 9 times a game, pretty much always. So Harrison doesn't have near as much upside as Malik Neighbors.
Well, yeah, the other thing is I hate the ADOT. His ADOT today was 13 yards, which is not that bad, but that's kind of on the low end for him. So I mentioned, average route depth, average depth of target, just too high. And you're not going to get enough catches that way. So we're not loving the way they're using Marvin Harrison. I think you put out your Superflex Dynasty rankings last week, right? And I
do it every week.
Yeah. So it was Daniel's Neighbors 1-2. Is that right or no?
That is not accurate. They were 2 risers that I was talking about. No, they were 1-2 amongst rookies. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
In the rookie class.
Yes. Redraft the rookies. Yes. Daniel's Neighbors.
What do you think about Brock Purdy? Where is he? He's got to be like 18th. I don't even know.
For the season? Yeah. This was like not a great game for him, considering everything that he's got around him. He's 11th in total fantasy points. He is currently QB 16 per game at 18 fantasy points per game. I think he just lives in that borderline QB1 range still, though, because it wouldn't surprise me if he scored 30 the next game. It's just completely unpredictable.
Yeah. Only one game with more than 16.6 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. And that was at the Rams, and they are so bad on defense. At Seattle on Thursday for him. And that's pretty much it for that game. Denver 34, Las Vegas 18. Bo Nix, is he entering the streaming conversation?
Probably not, unless yours is one of those leagues where everybody's carrying 2 quarterbacks and one of yours is hurt and the other one's in the bye, and then maybe you stream Bo Nix. Like I said, I thought he made some good throws. Troy Franklin cost him a long touchdown. He has that nose for the goal line as a rusher, and they let him run around a little bit. One of my favorite sideline exchanges of the season, him just yelling at Sean Payton and then walking away. I don't even know what he was yelling at him about. I just enjoyed it. No, he seems to be getting more and more comfortable. They let him throw the ball down the field just a little bit.
Yeah, and he can run a little bit as well. So Bo Nix scored 20. How many points did you score, Bo Nix? 27.1 fantasy points. Better than Daniel Jones. This was really a high-scoring week, though, for quarterbacks. So good job by Bo Nix and bouncing back from that bad game where he threw for 60 yards at the Jets in bad weather. And then Javonte had 18 touches. Last week, he had 18 touches. You can't ask for anything better than that. And 5 of them are catches, Right. That's amazing. Hopefully get some goal line work. All right. On the other side of the ball, I don't know, is there anything you want to mention? Like, what do you think about Alexander Mattison? He did not exactly make his case as the lead running back when Zamir White's healthy.
No, and it was still kind of a shared backfield. Amir Abdullah had more rushing yards than Madison did, and the same number of targets. I just don't think they're going to have a good running back.
Yeah.
Period.
Green Bay 24 and the Rams 19. A disappointing 20 fantasy points for Love. He only threw 26 passes. Jacobs with a nice, we kind of thought, we would call him a low. Yeah, so good for him. But what did you make? Dontavian Wicks was a total bust, but he actually led the team in targets with 7.
Second week in a row that he led the team in targets. Last week, he caught 5 out of 13. This week, he caught 2 out of 7. As a rule, we don't generally view drops as predictive, and I don't really care that much about them unless they impact what the coach does. I think it's going to be so important what happens with the Romeo Doubs situation. If Doubs comes back and makes up and is back in the wide receiver rotation, then I think Wicks probably disappears. If this is a long-term problem, then I'm probably going to go back to Wicks next week.
Yeah, look, I talked about this on Beyond the Box Score on Monday. I said I'm a little concerned about Dontavian Wicks' drops because he had 2 drops last week, and then he almost dropped his touchdown last week where he was wide open. So I just don't think he has very good hands. Combine that with the fact that he is such a downfield guy, right? It's not like they're running wide receiver screens for Dontavian Wicks. I mean, maybe they did, but the ADOT, I mean, it's 15 yards this week.
Yeah.
Is that right? No, 13 yards. It was 15 last week. So those aren't exactly easy balls to catch. It's a concern. It's probably the only guy that I'm sitting there, like, drops are a big concern with this guy. It's probably the only guy I'm thinking of right now that fits that description. Anything to say about the Rams going into their bye?
Kyron Williams is awesome. I hope we're getting Cooper Kupp back. Colby Parkinson, we found a way for him to score double-digit fantasy points. He just has to get double-digit targets. He could have had a huge day too. Had a couple of red zone targets. At least he scored 12 fantasy points.
I wonder if he's still getting targets if Kupp comes back. Like, does Kupp just kill the other receivers? Because I know Parkinson's not going to light it up, but if he's still going to be like 7 or more targets every game, then that's someone that you can stream.
I think he's probably going to remain. Like, I know in the projections, he's going to remain in the streaming conversation. You got to remember that, like, he got 13 targets, but it's not like he's just dominating the target percentage. There were 45 pass attempts for Stafford in this game. They have a terrible defense. There's probably going to be a lot of pass attempts.
All right, we got one more game left, and we have one more analyst joining us. Jamey's back. Giants 29, Seahawks 20. Just a game the Giants kind of dominated, and quite frankly, I thought that Eric Gray scored on that first possession, and it was ruled a fumble and a 101-yard recovery and touchdown for the Seahawks. Eric Gray had 3 carries on the opening possession, then he fumbled. He had 1 more the rest of the game. So keep that in mind just for Tyrone Tracy's outlook, but Tyrone Tracy was really good, and this could be something here. Maybe down the line, I don't know, but obviously
maybe something next week. I mean, we don't know Devin Singletary's recovering from a groin injury right away.
Right, exactly. And they get Cincinnati, which is a great matchup for everyone but Derrick Henry.
If I were the Giants, I would be shopping Darius Slayton right now. Like Chiefs
Kansas
on
City.
the phone, Bills on the phone, like any of these teams that need wide receiver, Saints or Jets, if they're really serious about a wide receiver, or is just Devontae Adams. But I mean, we saw what the first 3 games look like, where Slayton was a minor player and looked awesome. It's now 4 games, his last 4 games without Malik Neighbors on the team. He scored a touchdown.
That's right. It's
So-
17 or more points in every game.
He looked great, and Wan'Dale Robinson, solid game again. But if the Giants can get some value for Darius Slayton, and then maybe it opens up the door to develop Jalen Hyatt a little bit, I think that's a smart move for their franchise.
And Daniel Jones' dynasty value just went back up because he's got at least 1 more year starting now.
Let's talk about the Seahawks here, guys. And I don't know. What do you even take away from this game? I'll tell you one thing just real quick. Just as the guy who brought up maybe selling high on Ken Walker, it was really good to see him out there trailing late in the second half in the 4-minute drill. He was the guy out there. He was getting the catches. These are cheap fantasy points that running backs can get. You can't do it if Zach Charbonnet has that role. Ken Walker had that role in the second half today, and he ended up with 7 catches, and it saved his day a little bit because he couldn't get it going on the ground. But Jamey, what are your thoughts on the Seahawks?
I'd probably be trying to buy low. I'd be trying to buy low on DK Metcalf because you saw what he was capable of doing the first couple of games. Look, Geno Smith came into this game leading the NFL in passing yards. So disappointing performance by far, but there's still so much talent there with this receiving core, and this defense is still very banged up. They just lost Tariq Woolen. Who knows how long he's going to be out? He left the game. So if you're looking at it, Geno's going to throw. Going to be in the mix to be a borderline number 1 QB almost on a weekly basis. The fact that he gave you 60 rushing yards today, I know one of the carries was for 30 yards, but
72
60 rushing yards is
72.
Oh, 72. Last time I checked, it was 60 before the game ended. So the rushing is there. It's not going to be consistent, but it's there. But Metcalf's buy low candidate. I said this going into last week's game. I thought JSN was a buy low candidate. You've now seen 2 productive games and 3 of 5, productive games for him. And Walker, I think, is just a slam dunk top 10 running back rest of the season.
JSN got a little bit lucky with the touchdown at the end, but hey, it happened. And you know what? Geno Smith still leads the league in passing because he went into the week leading the league in passing. Going into today, it was Cousins after the 500-yard game, but he actually threw for 284 yards in this game. It just didn't feel that way. It was all
24 fantasy points.
Yeah, he ended up with a backdoor great game. And you know what? He's run for 30 or more yards in 3 of 5 games, and he leads the NFL in passing. I wish I had more conviction to say Geno Smith could have a huge year. He probably won't because he's Geno
Why
Smith.
don't you have conviction to say that? Because I think the thing about it is huge year. It doesn't mean he has to be a top 5 quarterback, but huge year could be in the 8 to 10 range, and he's kind of hovering there already.
It could happen. I think he's had really bad touchdown luck for.
Well, he only has one. He has no game so far with multiple touchdowns passing. He has 1 game with multiple touchdowns overall.
You know what it reminds me of? Reminds me of Stafford last year. He went 5 or 6 games where he could only throw 1 touchdown per game, and then all of a sudden just started throwing a bunch of touchdowns, and he became a stud down the stretch. So I think you got to at least say that Geno Smith, underlying stats, look pretty good. Unless I'm wrong, Heath, am I wrong?
No, I think they do. The problem is he's QB 11 for the season. He's averaging 20 fantasy points per game. How low are you able to buy on him, and how high do you actually think the ceiling is? I think, he's going to have a very good year. He's probably going to have some better touchdown luck. What's he going to finish? QB 6? Maybe? That's probably the ceiling.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just want to point out that he's playing pretty well, and the touchdowns could come. Okay,
probably just keep starting
him. We will talk to you on Beyond the Box Score on Monday afternoon at noon Eastern. For Heath and Jamey and Dave and Thomas, I'm Adam. Have a great night, everybody. See ya.